Welcome back, or welcome if you're just joining us. This is the France 24 debate. We're asking if it's honeymoon over for François Hollande, the economy being the issue. He's just seen a sweeping win for his parliamentary majority in both houses, and already he's now staring at a huge deficit, which could kill the momentum he had going into crucial EU talks about reforms that should lead to a summit at the end of next week. We're talking about it with media and telecoms lobbyist Leonidas Kalogeropoulos of the Employers Federation Éthique, Stéphane Cosset with France's centrist Modem Party, and from Brittany, the city of Vannes, we're joined by Paul Jorion, columnist for Le Monde Économique. Welcome back to all of you. For the break, we were talking about that jibe on the part of David Cameron saying he'd roll out the red carpet to any French businessmen who want to cross the channel. A direct reference to François Hollande's campaign pledge of a 75% tax bracket for revenues above 1 million euros. And it seemed to have had the desired effect, winding up members of the new French majority.
Should I comment on all the British citizens who come to France for medical treatment? And how in England, thanks to liberal policies, public services have been neglected? So I hope that he will regain his wits and his calm.
Stéphane Cosset, we didn't ask you, by the way, before the break. What do you think of David Cameron's remarks?
Well, this is politics. This is a game between two countries.
Are you amused? Are you outraged? Are you?
Well, I'm amused about that and the fact that the politicians in France do react to this. As I mentioned, I really do not think this is.
But there is a more serious remark, by the way.
Yes.
The British tabloids and British press have picked up on this as a whole. Cameron going out criticizing, since that remark, a British comedian, Jimmy Carr, whose sketches have been known to target fat cat bankers, and who, it turns out, stashes his cash in the tax shelter of Jersey. Yes. And the wider question, and a lot of people have been asking this question, why is it that at the G20, more wasn't said, when you're talking about fiscal harmonization and the like, about stamping out tax havens?
Well, you're right.
Not in the Cayman Islands, right here in Europe.
I understand. This is the most concerning. I mean, who does remember 2 days after the G20 what was said during that meeting? No one. You do not have any impetus anymore in terms of a G20 meeting. You do not have any sort of international consensus on what to do against tax havens, against financial tax, against how to reduce speculation, how to reduce what Paul Jorion is sort of describing as the decay of our world. In that sense, he's right. Where are we going? Where are we going in terms of values? Where are we going in terms of consumerism and so on? That's where we need the G20 to take a stand, and they're not doing it. Now, in terms of solutions, I will not agree with Paul Jorion, but he is right in saying that we have lost our values and we do not know where we're going in that standpoint. Capitalism cannot be the only answer, and we need regulation, a lot of regulation, and we do not have that at the level of the G20. That is worrisome. In terms of where the rich is going, I'm sorry to say to David Cameron that my understanding is that they are more going to Belgium than to the UK. But I'm saying that only half jokingly, actually.
All right. And capital flight, of course, an issue throughout the EU. We've seen a lot of money being pulled out of banks in Spain and Italy over the past few weeks. So how do you keep the money from leaving Southern Europe and from leaving France?
Well, there's no way of keeping the money. There's a competition. It's a free world. And even if some ideas, obviously, are still running on stopping people from letting their money come and go out, it's impossible. So the only way of keeping it is to allow people who've got money to still believe that there's a way of making their money work and increase and get richer. In France, we had today with our movement Ethique whole meeting, whole day on ethic first, and trying to think of where ethically capitalism is going. And we had some reminding some fundamentals. If people have a free economy today, and if we can go and buy our food, our houses, our clothes, it's not because of the generosity of all the people who are working. It is because each one of the companies expect that somehow or another they're going to have more money in selling food, houses, clothes, and it's that way the economy works. So if you stop people dreaming they can going to be able to earn more money, there's just a stopping of the whole mechanism of the free market and our economy. And that confiscation of 75%, very symbolically, is something which I think is going to have to be rediscussed before it is imposed. But I don't think anyhow
it's a
that's
popular measure among a lot of people.
But that's obviously not the kind of measure, and François Hollande and the left wing entirely agree about that. That's not the measure that's going to be able to make our French situation go better.
And you mentioned making France more attractive, and the government recognizes that instead of an industry minister, in fact, they now have the new government includes a minister for industrial growth. A nod to the fact that France does need to kickstart competitiveness on that score. A new survey shows that France has problems. Yuka Royer reports.
Is France attractive for foreign companies? Not so much, according to the latest investment figures. Among European countries, Britain remains the top investment destination for foreign firms, and France has now fallen behind Germany into third place. In 2011, France saw 540 foreign projects set up, 4% fewer than the previous year. These projects created a little over 13,000 jobs, a decline of 13%, or nearly 1,800 fewer jobs than the year before. One of the reasons is increased competition from Germany. The country has implemented structural reforms in the past decade and has emerged as a more attractive place for foreign investors. Above all, it has managed to reduce labour costs. Companies can expect to spend less than 29 euros per hour on a German worker, while a French worker costs a lot more at over 33 euros per hour. France's notorious administrative red tape and judicial instability aren't helping either.
They give some tax benefits to businesses, and then 2 years later the policy changes. Foreign firms decide to invest based on these advantages, but they later find out they can no longer enjoy the same benefits.
France still remains the top European destination for manufacturing firms, thanks to its strength in aerospace, biotechnology and other fields.
Paul Joyon, in part one of our discussion, you quipped that the fact that you were complaining that the wages in Bangladesh had become the standard and no longer wages in Europe. But you see there in that report, German labor costs 29 euros an hour. It's not that little. Should the French do more to make their labor market more competitive?
Well, I find it staggering that such a biased report is being aired on France 24. I mean, that sounds like this bit was written by the International Monetary Fund in Washington or by the World Bank. I mean, this is not a way to look at things. That's totally biased. I mean, I don't simply comply to having to look at issues within that particular framework.
All right, let's break this. Let's explain why. Explain to us why then.
Honestly. Hello?
Yeah, no, Paul Joyon, explain to us why then you think that report was biased.
Because it's all based on the same assumption that the only variable that can be adjusted is the salaries of the people who are making earnings on just ordinary salaries. We're not talking about investors who are just reaping dividends just because they have some money to put there. We're not discussing the outrageous bonuses, pension, or I would say arrangements It happened in my life. I've been working on that. I mean, I'm trying help to make these outrageous pension arrangements in order that they make a killing whenever they leave their job. How is it justified that people at the top of our companies are making these amounts of money? I mean, when Monsieur Hollande says, well, as far as what I say, state supported bodies, that we're going to put a cap at 500,000 euros, there's an outcry in the rest of Europe. How come that decency is not contagious? I mean, it's quite amazing that one country that's trying to make an effort to restore some kind of sanity into the thinking about these issues is being attacked not only by other countries, but by reports on France 24 to take the same perspective in trying to put it all in terms of competitiveness. And as I said, competitiveness just means one thing. We're going to reduce salaries because that's the only variable that we intend to adjust. And the whole system is skewed.
I'd like to answer to this intervention because I am very shocked by what has been said. Tremendously shocked, actually, because not only Germany. I'm sorry, I listened to you very, very politely and quietly. I listened to you very quietly, if I may.
You've been becoming so complacent of hearing things just put in the same terms that you are used to. I mean, decency is coming back. Hello?
Okay, but decency, it is giving jobs, having families who've got an income, and that's what's happening in Germany with much better situation of their unemployment than in France, which with a much better situation of their finances, and the whole of Europe is turning towards Germany, saying they're, I don't know, selfish or God knows what, but expecting that Germany, having done all the efforts it's done, is going to be able to pay for all the rest of Europe. And I thought there is tremendous indecency to say that what Germany has succeeded to do to increase its competitivity and have succeeding having the growth of its exportations and having a much better situation of its jobs and l'emploi globally, that work has been done in Germany. It's got to be done in France. Right, and we can't go on turning towards Germany expecting that perhaps we're going to do more debt in Europe just because Germany is there having done the job. I'd like France to do the job and find our pride in having done it and not just running after an intellectual model where economy would run with people who are just generous and abandoning the idea of money.
Stéphane Cosset, it's been said on the other hand that the German model that we're talking about here, where indeed at great sacrifices at times, there has been increased competitiveness. There, I found my word. In Germany, it's based upon a model where they export their stuff to the rest of Europe.
Yeah, that is certainly true. But unemployment in Germany is at around 7%. So I'm sorry to say, but if we had unemployment at 7% in our country, that would be wonderful. So you may say whatever you want about the German model, the figure is here. And Mr. Joyon may criticize the whole system. In the end, eventually, Germany has the lowest employment or unemployment, actually, in Europe.
But you yourself were mentioning a minute ago imbalances. Aren't part of those imbalances that...
So what I'm trying to say is the net profit by companies, in France is the lowest in Europe. It has been the lowest over the last 25 years. Actually, it is the lowest now as compared to 25 years ago. So what you need to address is how to increase the net profits of the company. And this is not through increasing taxes. This is not through new public spending, because new public spending will mean new taxes. This is by, as much as possible, alleviating the costs for companies. And if companies find confidence, and I'm sorry to say it, but Laurence Parisot just 2 days ago said...
The head of the Business Leaders Association.
Yes. She said, we do not know where we stand. We do not know where we are. So we have no confidence in the future. So we will not invest now. And if you do not invest, you will not have employment in the future.
Paul Jorion, what should be done to increase confidence of investors in France? What should make France more attractive as a place to invest in?
Again, this is not a framework within which we should look at things. We have a monetary system, an international monetary system that's been broken since 1971. We need to repair that. That's the highest priority. Until we do that, capital which is free, which is available, because not enough can be put into investing into industry, into business, because there's not enough purchasing power in most of the population. Until that issue is being solved, I mean, there's no way we can deal with that. Capital is not available just to be invested in industry. There's too much capital. It's just being used for speculation on international capital markets. We can see that putting pressure on countries which are in difficulty. The first thing we need to do is to call for a new Bretton Woods and to restore a monetary order. Until we have
new monetary
done that,
order.
there's no way we can fix anything else in the system.
All right, before we get to that, there's that summit at the end of next week. We're almost out of time. So let me just ask you, Leonidas Kalogiapoulos, what are you expecting out of that EU summit in Brussels that could hearten the French and could hearten Europe?
The good combination of the two priorities, rigor, austerity, absolutely necessary, so we stop spending the money we don't have, and that is putting in order our accounts. And I am sure the left wing, the government of François Hollande, has that as a priority, and that makes me very confident from that part of his program. I believe there is this consciousness, new consciousness, which wasn't always the tradition of the left wing.
And what's the other thing you're
expecting? The other thing is that I have heard his priority on growth. If it is combined, if it is settled on much more disciplined states, why not putting a bit of
all right, and this is, of course, a conversation that will be continuing between now and the 28th, 29th, when that summit takes place. I want to thank you for joining us. I also want to thank Stéphane Cosset for being with us, and Paul Jorion for joining us from Vannes in Brittany. Thank you for being with us here in the France 24 debate. Stay with us. Coming up next, Luke Brown is All the Day's Business News.